forms part of a research and organizing team that looks at lived experience and automated and increasingly intelligent technologies. I'm perennially interested in the question, how do we draw red lines in the development and deployment of AI systems? And with colleagues and collaborators, I'm increasingly pessimistic about the levers for change in that space. And in my 5-6 minutes, I just want to address 3 things that make it difficult to turn the concern of ordinary individuals and groups that struggle on a daily basis with coercive, automated, intelligent technologies in the workplace, in schools, on the street, and more. It's difficult to turn the concern of these ordinary people into democratic and just decision-making about AI systems. So I won't spend too much on the first item, but I think it's worth noting that as we move into 2024, it's increasingly obvious that government actors themselves depend on compute-heavy services for their daily operations. And this operational dependency creates, I think, a power dynamic where, as a client, the government is a client, is increasingly implicated in the performance of compute-heavy services and compute-heavy infrastructure. So any efforts to critique, to transform, to intervene in that market is going to create a conflict for the government, because that would mean their own compute-heavy services might not perform as optimally as desired. The second area that I feel a duty in drawing attention to, though I think gets a lot less attention in spaces like these, is the shrinking space of independent general research in computer science. So I'll take the United States as an example. Funding for general research and computer science research is now supported overwhelmingly by the private sector. So the National Science Foundation still counts as a major funder, but increasingly over the past decades, we've seen that, that influence decline. And with that decline, alongside of that, we know that in general, computer science as a field has been hooked on a mode of knowledge production with and for the private technology sector. And as the educational or the university system increasingly becomes more also dependent on computational resources, it means that the narrowing of research in computer science tends towards application and or sort of research that is favorable towards making a product, having some form of commercialized outcome. And what that means with this dependency is that computer science as a discipline lacks the incentive to evaluate itself, its mode of problem solving, and importantly, it lacks an incentive to not develop or even unmake certain types of technologies. So there's no disciplinary framework for this type of thinking to evolve and emerge. And I would add that, sadly, what seems to be happening is a lot of that critique and reflexivity gets shunted to the social sciences and or the humanities. And there's still a big divide between computer science and the other hard sciences where these technologies are really taking root and developing. The last point that I'll mention is, I think, resonant with Vidushi's point, which is this slide towards, or the lure of global governance. So we've heard a lot about the talk for the need for international bodies to coordinate decision-making, but what that means at a very practical level is groups and individuals whose lived experience ought to inform decision-making is cut off at the knees. It's cut off at the knees because lawmakers are too busy kowtowing to the private sector actors instead of its constituents. it draws resources, energy, attention away from those individuals and groups, like many of those that our data bodies works with, that feel the daily impacts of, for example, serving as training data for AI systems that are about to be developed and deployed in the workplace. So these individuals and groups that feel the daily impacts of automated and intelligent technologies can't participate. And this is something that we know from other global multi-stakeholder spaces of decision-making and governance. And that is going to be increasingly a barrier to actually getting a democratic and just system of governance in place. So I'll end there. I look forward to the questions and the discussion, but I do really want to stress this sort of three-part system by which the question of drawing a line, of not developing, of unmaking certain kinds of technologies gets shunted aside. Thank you.